What is up, YouTube? This is Pandaborg, previously known as Xandraeus. As you can see here, I've been pretty busy with 3D printing for the past couple of weeks now. I apologize for all the lack of updates, but it's been pretty busy in my life, and so I just wanted to go through briefly what all has changed on the Duel Disk since we started. So with that, let's begin. The first thing I'll be going over will be the deck boxes. The first time I printed the deck box out, I didn't notice that the cards bowed slightly when I inserted the cards in. So because of this, when I did it with less cards, I saw it, and that's when I started realizing that I needed to retolerance it. The second time I printed it, still there was some bowing, so I started retolerancing it slowly with each print. By the third print, I started noticing that I was being really stupid about it, because I should just reprint the deck part of it. But for this one, when the cards are inserted in, they fit in perfectly fine, and they are level. However, they fall straight out. So, this led to the reprint of just the individual deck parts themselves, and with that, this was fine, but it still fell out. And then the third one, almost there, as you can see. And then, the most recent one that I did was this one. So, when I inserted the cards in, and I tipped it, nothing at all. So I set on this design here, which gave rise to this model. I'm reprinting it now in black. Black will be my final prototype color, just to represent the fact that I like to play Red Eyes. This deck is the Red Eyes deck, and so when it comes down to it, I will re-sleeve this in red actually, so that I can put the cards in. So just one more demonstration with this one, just so that you can see the coloration difference. It slides in easily and doesn't fall out. Perfect. So let's move on to the other things that I've been working on with the design. The next thing I'll be talking about will be the dual zones. The dual zones were originally designed to have a shelf. As you can see with this first design here, I wanted to have this shelf slide perfectly in here. Unfortunately, the tolerances didn't allow it to actually push through, so I had to redesign it. The second one, I wanted to remove more space and make it less material, so I printed it so that the inside of the slot was just slightly bigger than a card's width, versus before it was almost a full width of the entire channel. Again though, this did not want to fit inside of the shelf slot, so I had to retolerance it again in order to get it to go, which gave rise to this piece here. This piece has the sliding shelf capability, but it didn't slide all the way inward. I wanted it flush with the edge. And then, that's where I came up with this idea, so it perfectly slid in and out. Unfortunately, at this point, I realized I didn't like the idea of you pull the shelf out, and then as a result, the shelf could potentially slide all the way out. That's one thing I didn't like about it. So I decided to undo the shelf design and go with something more appropriate for it, which I'll show you here in a sec. This is the newest shelf design that I've come up with. As you can see, in the first one, I've made it so that the pieces can unclip and clip together. That's the best part about this. They don't really fall to one another, but again, I haven't tested the full weight constraints of it yet, and so that'll be the next thing that I do when it comes to 3D printing these. When it comes to these shelves, these don't actually have shelves, it's just a single slot that's thin enough for you to put the card in. So as you can see here, when I put the card in like so, it almost goes all the way in, but because I created this indentation here, it prevents it from going all the way through. So I retoleranced that portion of it and recentered the diamond because I actually found out that I hadn't centered it correctly. And again, I was having the issue of putting it all the way through, but this one actually didn't do too bad. I didn't like this design though, mainly because it was inconsistent with this point here. Sometimes it would get caught, sometimes it wouldn't. And so I went back to a regular design with the final prototype here. And the cool thing about the middle section is it tilts down like so. You can then put your spell trap zone here. And there it is. You can Activate your spell trap cards like so. Sorry, let me use a different color card sleeve for that. I'll use this gold one. When this gold one goes in, it goes in like so. And you can see that it stays flush and doesn't move. The other cool thing is I wanted to make it so that you didn't have to necessarily put all your spells and traps constantly. The moment you activate it, it goes to the grave. While for the ones that actually do go in here, you can still see the title of the card, which is the entire purpose of that. The last thing I wanted to talk about for the shelf portion is this link zone is on a hinge here. I need to pick up screws for it, but ultimately what I plan on doing is they'll be tight enough that it rotates along this hinge here. So then when you don't need it, it folds down like so. And when you do need it, it folds up and over into place. Ultimately, that'll be what it looks like, and it is stationed enough so that there is a spot for monsters. So real quick, let's grab a monster. You can see here Black Metal Dragon's gonna fit perfectly in there. And if I choose to put it in attack position, that it can go in attack position, like so. We'll be moving on to the extra deck, the banish zones, and the shelving unit that I have created for the last portion of it. The extra deck and banish zone here, as seen, you can see that I actually goofed on tolerancing the first time, and so I just basically chopped away at it until it fit perfectly with the original deck box. So let's just take that right now and see how it looks, and the fact that I pushed it in like that. And that is how I have it put together, like so. The shelf is the other component that goes right into it, but it was so tight here that it made it hard to pull it in and out, so I had to retolerance that portion as well. The next thing I did was I wanted to test again sizing of the cards so that they would fit perfectly inside. You can see here again that there are issues slightly with the bowing because the cards slightly bow upward and they don't sit flat. So to prevent damage around that, I had to retolerance the edging here again, which gave rise to the black unit. I have to actually reprint this again, mainly because I goofed on the tolerancing again here, and one of the tolerances that I set here did not actually get exported into the CAD model, so my bad. I sanded it briefly though just to show that I can still do it, but when you put cards in here, this is either your grave or your banished. You can flip-flop the two whether you want them or not. Sorry. Let me use gold cards again just so that it makes it more obvious. And then this one was the one that I had to retolerance. And then here's your extra deck zone, which again, I've created little slots here for you so that you can put your fingers in between and pull your extra deck out, since this will be sitting on your wrist. The next thing that I've actually finished that I really enjoyed, you can put 4 little dice inside of this shelf. The shelf goes into this cavity here, and when you pull on that hinge, it opens it like a shelf. That's the most recent feature that I thought was really unique. And the last thing that I was thinking about was removing the second link zone, or making it so that after you link someone, you use the other link zone as the field spell zone, so I can avoid adding 3 additional components onto the edge, making it weight heavy at the front. But that's the general updates right now. I will probably throw up an assembly soon of the entire thing that I finished, and at that point I still need to try to recoup some losses here because this was a lot of filament that I used. So if you could mash that like, help me out in any way by submitting a donation or two, that would also be great. Thank you.